Welcome to Beyond the AGM, a production of AGORACOM in which we sit down with small cap executives right after they've done their annual general meeting to run through their deck, run through some questions from that shareholders probably have about the business. And today it's HPQ Silicon. Doesn't really need an introduction because this is more addressing current shareholders, so I won't go through my long intro for the new shareholders. Bernard,
Yes.
AGMs are used the day they're voting on new boards and new CEOs. Do you still have a job?
Yes, I still do have a job.
Does that mean I still have a job?
Yes.
Nice.
Well, it depends. We'll see at the end of this video.
We can we can end it right there. As long as I got a job, I gotta go. I gotta go. I gotta get ready for the Trump-Biden debate, which is the second most anticipated debate of the day, next to you and me. The whole world is waiting for you and me in this Beyond the AGM. That's what they're waiting
Yes.
for. First question for you.
Yep.
Usually one of the important, but stable questions you get at AGM, things you got to vote on AGM, is the auditor.
Yes.
There was no vote for the auditor today because in a press release a couple of days ago, you notified that KPMG sent in a termination for them being the auditor. Can you provide some clarity on that? Because that's always important when the auditor comes into play. Can you shed some light on that and what that means for the company?
That sort of came out of left field. There's no real reason for this. It's mostly internal to KPMG. There was no issue with the 2023 audit. No issue with now. They're going through reorganization. They're going through these things. It has nothing to do with HPQ. Like we scratch our head. The partner scratches their head why it happened, but it did happen. Some people take strategic decision about what to do. We were very, we spent a lot of money on our auditors and our audit, and anyway, eventually
so internal reorganization at KPMG.
Yeah.
No concerns with the financials of HPQ.
Nope.
Nothing like that. Okay.
Nope. If there was one, they wouldn't have signed the 2023 audited financial statement. So
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, I just want to get that out of the way.
Yeah.
You and I discussed that briefly yesterday. I just want to make sure everybody, had the same information. Next question before we get into the deck. Here we are a year later, another AGM has gone by. How much stronger is HPQ this year at the AGM versus last year at the AGM, and quite frankly, versus any other AGMs?
I think we're stronger than we've ever been in a business sense. Okay. The value proposition we have are stronger. And we have a better grasp of where we're going. Okay. And we've sort of designed, and what seems to be coming out of all these issues that we're well positioned for the future. And we've executed something correctly. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not satisfied with our share price right now, but overall, we're executing and moving in the right direction to generate values for shareholders. Because, as you say, I might be an employee of HPQ, but I'm also a large shareholder of HPQ, and so is my family. So we have a lot of moolahs on the table, and the multiple stools that HPQ, or legs on the stool that HPQ are developing, are really coming to fruition. So, in a nutshell, we're in a much stronger position now than we were last year, because last year we really only had one thing that was moving forward, and this year we have multiple things. So this is much better.
Is it safe to say, and I'm not asking you to make a projection, but is it safe to say that this may be the last AGM you ever have where you're technically a pre-revenue company because of what's coming on with the pilot plant and what you have kind of alluded to in past press releases about offtakes, agreements, partnerships, and things like that? Do you think, how confident are you that this time next year you're no longer going to be a pre-revenue company?
That's going to be that's sort of hard to say, because you don't go from no revenues to 100% revenues overnight. It's gonna be a gradual effect. This being said, there are enough moving parts for us to have multiple things that could get there. Is it going to be by the end of this year? No, but the trajectory will be so clear that it won't really become that important, in the sense that the trajectory is going to be clear. We're going to be eventually a revenue generating company, going to have revenue generating assets. And there are going to be multiple of those assets moving forward.
Okay, and with that, you and I have alluded a lot to the infamous deck that you've updated, I don't know, 5 times this year so far. Version 5, actually, now that I look at it, this is version 5.
No, this is literally
For
this is version 5 of the AGM version.
of
This is
the
literally
AGM. Okay, all right.
this is sort of the AGM version, but it's the same one. You know, typical disclaimer. You know, look at it. You know, we sort of were asked to put, you know, some of the faces of people when we talk to investors. But I think this slide is the one that's basically summarize, okay, what HPQ is. In a certain way, what we do is we develop multiple projects at the same time so that we're not 100% dependent on one. And this is sort of a way for us to present it to every investor, and every new investor is going to look at this to understand what we're working on. And naturally, fumed silica is number one on the size. Specialized powder addictive. Basically, the market's $2 billion. And then it sort of like highlights the key advantages of our technologies.
Like that.
And then it's going to be ready for, you know, commercialization end of 2024, 2025. That's our first to the goalpost going. That's the first one where we have a clear pathways to generate revenues. We know once we have offtake agreements that the financing of the building commercial plant or plants will not be a very big issue. And that's advancing forward. So we feel very comfortable about this. The second one is silicon metal, which used to be our big one, which I think is going to come back to being a bigger one. We just put it in perspective for people to understand what's the HPQ work. Because the number one question people ask is, what the heck does HPQ does? Okay. And in a certain way, before in all the other decks, you have to go, you have to read 37 pages of deck, which nobody wanted to read, to figure it out. So we found a way to bring it down to one thing. So the silicon metal.
Before in the past, where I said we need that one deck, that kind of big
Yeah,
picture deck, and then you can go into the details.
And that's literally what this deck is. If you take a look at silicon metal, it's a specialized metalloid. It's now been named a critical metal. Market just for traditional silicon metal is $12 billion it's going to be 20 billion by 2030. Okay, but the fact is, how dated processes requiring 6 tons of feedstock to make 1 ton of Si. It's scalable by 30,000 to 50,000 tons. So think about the social acceptability if you want to build a plant for these things. The electricity you'll need to do these things. You know, 50,000 ton, you multiply by 6. That's how many tons of raw material you'll need a year. So it's a multi-step to make 2 to 4N, which is where the bulk of the market is, 2 to 4N material Si. High variable cost, and basically it's the largest CO2 footprint. So it's a needed material. It's a material that's going to be, production is going to be reshored, definitely, because, you know, what's happening to graphite in China is going to happen the same thing to silicon. Right now, actually, even China is stopping exporting silicon. They're using it more for their internal thing. And they now even need green silicon manufacturing process. So this is where we come in. We have the QRR, which is a new one-step process to make 3 or 4N, which is exactly what's needed for battery grade. Scalable by a range of 2,000 ton per year, which makes it much more easy. It's a big word to use, easy, but much more feasible to bring into production in a logical step. Because when you have big scale, you need, you know, big price of volume to get those things moving around. So we're scalable. We have a 0 CO2 footprint because of the design of the QRR. Potential for EBITDA margin above 50% when we capture the CO2 and make green synthetic fuel with this. So it will be the greenest synthetic fuel. There is all that opportunity that was there. That wasn't there a year ago. That wasn't there. Now that's much more clearer. The demand is clearer. The market situation has changed much more I would dare to say, much more positive in those issues. And I think the QRR is going to come back to become a great asset, which goes into our next line of business, which is engineered silicon oxide battery, basically engineered material. The market just, okay, just for cell phone is going to be $38 billion by 2030. And why do I say this just cell phone? Well, when you use your cell phone, just like I'm doing right now, I'm just plugging in the plug, use your cell phone, okay? You don't discharge it down to zero. You know, at 60%, 50%, you come and plug it back in. When we do
You're a
cycle tests on our
maniac. What do
battery,
you feel? I wait till like 10%, 50%.
well,
You're gonna kill your
you
battery. But point taken.
but that's the key point. When we do test about 100 cycle that we've announced, we take that battery 100% charge, bring it down to zero. So that stresses more the batteries, and then you move them up and down, up and down, up and down those issues. So it's the worst case scenarios. And we run, great type of result around 200 cycles, which is what the industry is getting, but we're getting better results than they are. So it's perfect for this industry because that's 200 cycles perfectly needed for this. There's multiple of other applications that do not need those many cycles. The military is for drone. They don't need things that do 500 cycle, 200 cycle, especially if it's a suicide drone. They don't need that, but they need highly efficient. So there is a market for already what we're doing. Okay. And if you think about it, the legacy SIOX manufacturing process, and although I didn't really talk too much about it, it's an inefficient batch process that needs multiple steps to go from SI to SIOX, then to engineered SIOX. So it's a high OPEX, high CAPEX. Okay. What we're looking at offering from the work we've done with Novation and just translating to what we're doing is basically developing a new proprietary semi-continuous process. Okay. So we have the QRR to make the SI, green SI. Then we take that SI to make SIOX. Then we make an engineered SIOX to make silicon-based anode material in a semi-continuous process. What you end up having is, while the CapEx might be the same, our OpEx is going to be, tremendously small. It's a scalable process, which fits exactly what the QRR is, scalability. So we can put ourselves right next to, eventually, to outside clients. So, we don't need to run. That's one of the main reasons what we stopped being a mining company is because we could better size our production to what our client can buy, as opposed to right size it for the mine. Because when you're a mining company, you got to make the mine look economically fashionable, even though it's very complicated. So that's how you end up having companies that, with $200 million market cap, to make their project work, they need $2 billion. Yes, on paper, it looks like it makes money, but they still need to raise $2 billion. So it's not the same thing. And basically using the QR as feedstock, hey, you're going to have the greenest material, which comes into it because everything has a carbon tax added to it. Well, at this specific moment. But even if it doesn't have, people are going to have some preference over, zero carbon and lower carbon.
It's going to be carbon tax no matter what,
Yeah,
especially. By the way, I was thinking about you yesterday because I think I've mentioned interviews before briefly, but I was one of the early believers in flying taxis, for lack of a better term. And I was just reading some great articles yesterday, 5 or 6 articles, how it's now coming to reality right now. Dubai 2026, New York, they're testing for now just to go from the harbor to the airport. But these flying taxis are all going to be using the batteries, right?
Yeah.
They're all going to be batteries because they need to be quiet and they need to be fuel efficient. I mean, efficient. They need to be carbon friendly. So we haven't even factored in, because I believe that's going to be a massive global market. It's absolutely going to be massive everywhere, not just the big cities. It's going to be massive in the next 5, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. So we haven't even factored that into the total size of the market.
Anything that comes in with regard to energy storage, okay, is going to be massive. And AI, okay, is going to be one of the driving forces with all that, intuitive learning. They need energy. And these guys suddenly realizing, oh my God, I'm going to need green energy. Well, the problem with green energy is you make a lot of the energy when you don't need it. So you'll need to be able to store the energies, move it forward. And then you're going to end up having, so you're going to have to say, if you want to have the energy for XYZ, you might end up having to build green energy capacity for 10 times that material. then you're going to be stuck with what's called green waste energy. Okay, well, this is where we come in with our scalable process. We can figure a way to use that green waste energy to make materials that are needed, from silicone for batteries, for all those issues. So the opportunities and the abilities to move into the markets are there. Okay, so we're advancing in that direction. And then we go to the last process, which is an autonomous on-demand energy production system. Okay, market opportunity is massive. And you know that traditional hydrogen is worse than natural gas. You can't really transport it, moving it around. So what we're designing is a new pressurized hydrogen production system that's going to liberate and do easy cost into it. The revenue model for us is going to be great because it won't be that expensive capex wise. And it's not going to be selling the systems that are going to be the big revenue generation. It's going to be selling the material that comes into it. You'll need material that comes from our production facility. So it won't need massive capex to build massive, complicated plant. Okay. And that's one of the things that HPQ does is we look at projects where a company our size can start to finance or partner up or find the right partners to get that in production, generate revenues, and start moving forward. And that's where we're now reaching that point. So what changed between 2023 2024 is this has become not physically, but really realistically potentially possible for us. And that's a big change. So this is why we show those are the four basically steps. We're not depending on one of them. Okay. So, and you see, for 1 year, silicon metal wasn't that strong. Fumed silica became stronger than battery. Then we said batteries are going to start coming into play, and they did, and they're showing us the potential for generating a market for a silicon metal. Then we're realizing, oh, wait a minute, the fact that we have a green system, a carbon system, we can then add a second revenue, which increase the EBITDA of the margin. So would we have known this if we had done the work on the batteries? Probably not. It wouldn't have become clearer in our mind. So this opens up all those issues. So that's really what's cool about HPQ.
Two other observations before you flip the screen is what I love the fact, in addition to your tech and what you're doing, is you're downsizing everything. And we know that's just the way the world has always been. Massive phones that look like suitcases down to, little devices like that. You're downsizing everything. Everything's becoming more modular. Energy is becoming more modular. We're talking about the grid, every home becoming a grid, basically. So I love the fact that you're right there with that trend. And the other one is, if people haven't noticed, at the bottom of every one of those boxes, fumed silica, ready for market end of 2024, start of 2025. Silicon metal, ready for commercialization 2025. Silicon battery materials, ready commercial 2025. And the autonomous hydrogen production, ready for commercialization 2025. So you're right there. This is no longer a case of we're 3-4 years away. I remember you used to say back then, we're 3 years away. Man, I can't wait 3 years. And now we're there. So I just want to make those two observations because those are
some of them are commercialization, but there's going to be interest and demand for it. There's going to be value recognition in what we're doing. Okay. And probably there's going to be more value recognition, the blue sky potential of the technologies than when we actually start making it. And there's an old saying about this, but the beauty of it is, I've always said I wanted another things to be able to support so we can continuously have a continuous news flow. So if you think about it, what's HPQ's business strategy? We're really centered on developing multiple new scalable processes that are perfect for customized solution. One of the things I've always heard, because I deal in industry that are very, very massive. Okay. For a lot of them, low-lying fruits, they can't really touch. So I've used that example how many times in the silicon metal industry. One of the CFO, one of the largest companies said, if there's a material, we need 5,000 tons per year, that sells 5 times the price, it will not change the needle in the entire big size company. Okay. Same thing about fumed silica. Okay. 1,000 ton per year plant will not change something on a big major fumed silica. But for HPQ, multiple 1,000 at the profit margin we're doing is going to be massive for us. And of course, as we start developing and doing those 1,000 ton, which doesn't move anything, then they're going to start to realize, oh, what are we left there? So then we become more acquisition. So that's really what it is. So we're working on processes with lower carbon and OpEx and or high profit margin. That's where we focus on. What we're doing. Process that can be brought to production and grow organically by a company our size. All right. So if you
You don't
look
want
at
to have $5 billion CapEx things where you're just not in that ballpark.
and if you look at all of them, they are feasible size for a company like ours. Like to get the first autonomous hydrogen system, maybe we need 2 million, 2.5 million. Then we can get sales. Not that big. Battery size, depending what we do, maybe it's $5 to $10 million to start to be in the industry. So it's all in a price bracket that makes sense to it. And since we're going to have multiple at different areas, we'll be able to leverage off of them. Okay, and we have enough catalysts upcoming to really generate interest in what we're doing. And we're not looking at spending a lot of money. If you take a look at our indicative 12-month rolling budget, we're just looking about, we're going to need $5 million we should target. But some of those are going to be generating revenues, sort of revenues for us. If we take a look at the Novation capital increase, the one-time capital increase, well, that's going to generate for us on a yearly basis, because of European rule, access to grants of between 700,000, 900,000 euros every year. That's not a bad return on the investment, because the money stays in the bank account. You don't spend the money. We get the grant.
You're not raising it to burn it. You just need to put it in a bank account, and from that, you
I
get
literally just need to put it in the bank
$1 million
account
worth of grants
to get massive grants, to get massive projects. Same thing for our silicone batteries and hydrogen R&D. Yes, it's costing us 1.4, but about 35% of that is going to come back in R&D tax credit. Okay, we don't get that in Canada. We're not even there. We're not even competing. So we're looking at how to optimize. So it's what we see, maximum utilization of non-equity based financings. That's what we mean. Okay, that's what we do. And what we do also to keep our structure small and our design side, we maintain control of IP directly or through exclusive licenses, while outsourcing as much as possible, as feasible, the development of our work to stay a low cost and agile. That's really what HPQ is, what's doing, and that's what it's been doing in coming along. If you take a look at the upcoming catalysts on the green fume silica, okay, first thing is finalize pre-offtake agreement with party under NDA. When that happens, which should be very soon, it's going to be a big check mark.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds very confident.
Oh, I'm very, very confident. And then once we start, we're going to be starting producing fume silica. Once we start producing fume silica, yeah, that's going to be like a massive one check mark. It's going to be, okay, we finally done everything correctly, proved it up to pre-commercial stage and moving things. We have the same thing for the batteries and green hydrogen, so we won't waste too much time. Won't go through much into the detail, but interesting point is there's no producer of fume silica in Canada. Okay. Canadian market's 24,000 tons per year. There's 16,000 new tons of demand. So it's easy to envision that if we build a fume silica manufacturing capacity in Canada, we could sort of have an exclusivity over the market, because if for any chances our competitors in China, which are highly, government supported, we can put tariffs and they can't even compete against our price. So and with that push of onshoring, everything is going there. So won't spare you too much in details. This is the same as possible, but just realize one thing. The traditional process to make fume silica, okay, actually produces more hydrogen chlorine gas than it produced fume silica.
Wow.
Hydrogen,
that's terrible.
The number is 2.4.
That's horrible.
But that's literally what it is. Ours, we produce zero. So, the disruptive advantage are there, but this one shows it better. This is adjusted after the Pyro decided to convert. So CapEx is still around $10 a kilogram. We were saying like $9.50, $10 a kilogram to build a 1,000-ton unit. That's our plan. Our plan is to build first 1,000-ton units and then basically copy and paste and put them together. Usually we'll try to regroup them into a facility that can have 5 of those units, which will give us more flexibility. We can deal with downtime easier. So it's going to be easier for us to operate. And you basically all know those, but the EBITDA margin, okay? This is what we've made. The 150, this is what we've made. This is minimum base case scenario, 72 to 80% EBITDA margin. Then you add, oops, sorry about this. I bet you add the carbon tax.
It
Carbon
goes through
tax
the
is going to
roof.
pay.
It just blows up when
It,
when you add the
it
carbon
blows up the
tax.
number. And remember, my competitors do 20%, barely. If it's on a good day and the wind's on the right side and the wind's blowing in the right direction. So I've readjusted this so people can see it. I think it's a bit clearer this way. So the key assumption is, if we make the A150 sells at $5
Hold on, slow
US.
down just a little bit because you're popping a lot of numbers on the screen. So what you've
Yeah.
got is the financial potential of the fume silica process,
Mhm.
and you got three columns: the A150, the A200, and the A300.
Yeah, and we have the worst case scenario and best case. But in my mind, worst case scenario is when we're going to start operating the system because we won't be as efficient as we can be. And best case scenario is once we know how to operate the system. So, as I said, there's absolutely no differentiation for us in the cost of making the material if we do 150, 200, 300.
But is there a specialty? Is there a technical specialty to make the A200 versus 150 and the A300 versus the A200? Is it more
It's going to
technical
be
expertise,
it's
or is
going to
it just a
be
choice of which one you want to produce?
it's going to be a question of operational parameters which you program the system to work, but overall it won't really change the cost of making it, as opposed to for other companies, which really does change it.
So then there's no reason why you wouldn't go straight to the A300 in where you're doing
Question of market.
86 to 90% margins.
Yes, but it's really going to be a question of demand market. The offtake agreement might say we want more A200 because that's the material we're having a hard time doing. We'll figure it out. The idea between all of this is we also realize that there's a massive learning curve. We're learning how to market and do these issues. So at the beginning, it's better to have an offtake agreement while we focus on becoming a better manufacturer of the material. And then since there's no substitute, there's an easy substitution. We can eventually sell it in our own brand. Although my belief is that won't happen. Somebody will buy us out. Let's go back. So here we are, engineering, construction, all this, right? 2024 FSR pilot plant. I strongly believe that's only a hunch. I have nothing. Well, yes, I do have a few things, but nothing really officially concrete. But I really believe that the company where we're in discussion of the pre-offtake agreement will probably try to make sure that they buy all the material that we do with the pilot plant for no other reason that they probably won't want others to have access to that material. But that's really where it is. So
Got
it's
some pretty
just
good tidbits here.
well, it's just logic. It's just logic, Remember, I'm the one that talks with these people. So
By the way, are these people watching our interviews, these presentations, or have you already walked them through this presentation privately, I guess?
I don't know if they're gonna watch this one, but where was it? Who was I talking to? Who was I talking to? I think it was a European person. I have not a memory blank who it was, but it says, yeah, I've watched all your Agora video.
That's why you're wearing a tie today.
No.
Formal Bernie.
It happens,
You
Don't
wanted
get
to
too
keep your
accustomed to it.
job, so you came with a tie today at the
Into a tie,
AGM so
yeah.
you could keep your job.
You keep your job well.
Oh, that's fantastic, though. All kidding aside, the fact that they are watching these and
But I'm not sure
just
it's a few silica guys. It's somebody else. I was talking. It was sort of like brain fart right now. Sorry about it. So just, but I know I definitely remember that happening.
By the way, do they find it entertaining a little bit as much as they find it informative? Have they? Because the Bernie and George
Yes,
show,
yeah,
we
yeah.
get
No,
some good
no.
reviews and some big critics, So what?
Well, the big critics don't like the fact that it's a way for us to address and deal with those issues, and I'm not dealing with any information that is not publicly out there. We've issued a press release saying we're in discussion. We issued more thing. And the fact that we want to do an offtake agreement has been there. It's just, I've just presented in a more clearer fashion what I've been saying, presenting in press release. That's all what this is.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool to know that people are watching those. Though this is
Yeah.
great because
Yeah.
you describe things. All kidding aside, you go beyond the press release when we do these interviews and you really drill down into the
Well,
granularities and explain it. And I think that's very valuable, not just for shareholders, but for
mhm,
potential partners, potential customers, potential
mhm.
investors to hear you really flesh it out. So that's why I think these are so awesome.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like it took us time to get the flow that we have, but but we have it here. So basically, the beginning, the PureVap QR, silicon metal. You got to remember this has been a success. We've scaled it up to 1,500%. So this is why we feel very comfortable with fumed silica. It's not an unknown situation. We know we can do successfully one-step production of battery grade material, successful semi-continuous production. 25% less feedstock. Hey, we know the technology works. But I was a new focus, basically using QR feedstock for value and add downstream products. We said the battery areas,
Like a
and really
vertical
to
integration, right? That's
yeah,
a vertical integration.
vertical integration. And what we said about a year ago is we're going to work more on the batteries to generate the demand that's going to come for the QR. And now we're sort of like we're starting to see where we are on the battery side and what's moving forward. So and basically we now know that the QRR by design, okay, we have a capacity to capture 100% of the carbon off gas, okay, which then allows the creation of a second revenue stream for converting that carbon gas into green synthetic fuel. Pretty awesome. And also, because we're small, we're scalable, it's going to be part of our design idea and our thought idea is how can we organize ourselves so we can take maximum advantage of green waste energy? What is green waste energy? Well, it's basically the fact that using renewable energy means that you generate, 5 to 6 times the energy you really need when you need it to be able to have access to it. I was just reading an interesting article that in France, although they ran out of electricity, now they have to actually shut down some of their nuclear power during the weekend
I've
because
heard that. That's unbelievable.
there's not actual demand. There's too much green energy for what's going on. So that green waste energy, if it's not used, it's wasted. That's why it's called green waste energy. Well, if you have a 30 to 50,000 ton per year capacity plant, it'll be unimaginable, okay, to have the battery pack to store the energy to operate that system. If you're doing 2,000 tons per year, it is feasible. You can store that energy. As I said, you can also use some of that green waste energy to produce hydrogen. You can store that hydrogen during that moment, and then when we operate the QRR, we can convert that into green synthetic fuel that can be used from anything to aviation, those areas. And you basically have multiple revenue streams. You use green waste energy, which basically costs you nothing, which means the carbon footprint you have is incredibly zero, but it can only be done because you're small. But you can be
You have the
multiple
flexibility to be able to do it. You
and
can't do that at scale, not
that's
without
something that's
scale
something
times scale. If for the really big old fashioned, it's just
and
too much.
that's something that industrial, okay, don't yet have in their thinking. It's not in
They
their
haven't seen
thinking
it because they haven't really seen it either.
because
Right? It's not.
because it hasn't been done. But the FSR,
Yeah.
the fumed silica reactor, is going to be the first demonstration of that business model. Because I know, as I said, I talked to a lot of these people, and one of their big concept is, oh no, you can have like 3 people to operate that plant that only does 1,000 ton. You should have like a 50,000 ton with 3 people to be more economical. The variable cost of that is baloney. The 1,000 tons would be more efficient, making much more money and doing those issues. But it's still the thinking bigger is better is out there. That's one of the walls that we're fighting with. I get people asking
Well,
me,
that's where you just got to get them thinking. I'm not going to tell you how to talk to your potential partners or customers or whatever you're talking to, but that's where you got to say, guys, the whole world has been about minimizing and minimizing and minimizing from
yes, but
massive
when you talk to
supercomputers to
industrial
desktop
people,
computers.
when you
You know,
talk to industrial people, okay, they have a
big
show
now.
me at it. They have a show me attitude. This is where the fact that in the coming Q3, coming period, we're going to start to get the FSR working. We're going to start making. We're going to be demonstrating that, proving this. Okay. And the reason why we're signing a pre-offtake agreement with a party under NDA is because there's at least some of those people there are starting to clue in on this potential. And it's gonna be like, how can I say this? When AI started, nobody, for a lot of time, nobody believed it, blah, blah, blah. And then at one time it went nuts. Well, somebody had to think before to do those issues. We're thinking, I'm not saying that we're related to AI, we're going to AI, it's not what I'm using as an example. I'm just assessing, telling people, okay, that one of the reasons why, and I've been asked that question, why are we still here if we have something so great? It's because we still have to demonstrate it. But once we demonstrate it, and the beauty of HPQ is that that's not it. There's more than just that. So anyway, without further ado, let's move along. Now we go into silicone for batteries.
And by the way, you
Right
had a
now,
big announcement. We didn't get a chance to talk about it on
oh well,
Wednesday
I'm gonna
because you had the AGM coming
yeah.
yesterday because you had the AGM talk today. So we said there's no point in doing a beyond the press release and
Mhm.
then doing a beyond the AGM 24 hours apart. So
Yeah, but
if you want to
I've
go through the
already
slide
integrated
or
that.
go, you decide where you want to talk about the latest with the
Yeah,
press release.
it's already integrated in the presentation. So silicone. Remember something right now. China is strategically using their massive production capacities in areas to block it. And we were lazy in the West in the sense that we gave that up too easily. Okay. Now, graphite, they're going to control it. So there's two issues coming on with graphite. First of all, demand for graphite for EVs, okay, is going to outstrip supply multiple times over. But it's not going to be done like in a nice, fashionable way in those issues, but it's coming along. So for all the batteries, energies, all those issues, you're going to need something to be able to replace that graphite. Well, if you do it by silicone using the material that we're developing, you're going to have a better batteries by default. So this is where it's incredibly well positioned because just by removing it, you'll be improving the performance of the batteries. So think about this, how well positioned we are, which goes into this. This is what we've created with Novation. Okay. And our plan is always to use the QR. So think about this. The QR makes the silicone base material to be converted to SiOX for the batteries, and we also create green synthetic fuel. We then take the material and go higher up the value chain, which is going to be completely HPQ, sort of like processes. And we're going to go higher up the value chain. So our goal is to continue. So, and we've demonstrated by doing multiple batteries that we understand how it's made, and we feel very comfortable with the people in Novation. Basically feel very comfortable that we've sort of reached a point where we understand very well where the industry is right now. We understand how to replicate production, produce these issues. So there's not really R&D. It's more like a question of development costs and building the plants and moving those forwards. And we also know how we can improve the material. So if you take a look, this two big results we've announced. And you have to realize that when you do certain type of battery testing, you don't use the same protocol. So when you do battery protocol to see the to do the maximum capacity, okay, you charge the battery to the maximum, discharge it, and then you have the reading. So we had our Gen 2 that was over 3,500 capacity, a milliampere per hour. And then you have the reference, the graphite reference, which you have here. All the typical graphite batteries are here. So already the Gen 1 was a very good one. The Gen 2 is a very good one. And the Gen 3, our target is to break the 4,000 milliampere. And I think we're in the right
What
track
would
to do
that
this.
do for notoriety to break the world record on
It's just a
18?
bragging right. It's just a
Well,
bragging
would
right.
it bring a lot of attention?
Hey, of course it'll
That would
bring
have to bring
attention.
a lot of attention.
Yeah, of course it'll bring attention. It'll
I
bring
mean, is that a
attention
big
because
jump to make? It's kind of like if you're moving from bench pressing, 360 pounds to 400 pounds, it becomes very difficult near the
I
end to
will
make those
just
gains.
revert to what our COO at Novation has said. He believes he can reach that target. I will just leave it there. And then we go on to what's known as long cycle type of testing. Okay. So we have a long cycle. This is our Gen 2. You see how, very, 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 we keep a lot of the charge in there. Now, notice a point of interest. We're around 3,400. And here we were above 3,500. Why is that? Because we're not using the same protocol to charge and discharge. There was at one point a lot of fudster were making a big baloney over, I was sort of like referring to these percentage improvement. And I was showing this graph and they said that doesn't match. It doesn't match because it's not the same testing. It's not apple and oranges. But The key point is this. This shows on the maximum capacity, we go above 3,500, which means it is actually a 30% improvement to this, and is a 14% improvement to that. That's fine. When you then do long cycle testing, you have this long straight line, which I'm assuming we do it, which is 3,400. Yes, it's lower because we're using a different protocol to do the testing. So what few people don't understand, you can play around with protocol. We're actually much more transparent. I dare you to find other battery companies that are showing the information we are. Nobody does, because they don't want to show it. They show it in different ways. They hide it around. They'll use small numbers at the bottom to say, this was done under XYZ type of conditions. Anyway, so we're showing you we're very transparent. We got a graphite here. We got our Gen 1, Gen 2. This is where it really gets interesting. Gen 1, which was very, very good. Remember, I showed it, compared it to a Samsung 100% advanced batteries, that lost 5% in their first 50 cycle. And we were 100% cycle. We only lost like 3% at the 100 cycle. Well, with the Gen 2, we barely lost 1%. That's very, very good. That's very interesting. That's the key point that people have to understand. And as I said, the global cell phone market, which is perfectly suited for this material, is a $30 billion a year market. It's like,
and growing.
It's a low-bearing fruit to pick up. And we go for the hydrogen. We won't go too much into detail, but really, you have to understand that hydrogen production is not the issue. You just need access to electricity, which is sort of an issue now.
Transportation is a nightmare.
Transportation is the big issue. Our system, completely autonomous, completely designed, end user, you do it. It brings down to this. It really comes down to this system. This is at the beginning going to be mostly used for military or really off-site type of location to have the type of energy.
How's that part going, by the way, with the? I know you've talked about military before, and how's that looking in terms of any the amount of interest?
No, the interest is there. It's if I had successfully raised the money to being able to put the €1 million into the company last year when there was an issue with the financing due to market conditions, we'd already be much more advanced in this regard. But we've made more work in the batteries. We're advancing this. The demand is still there. There's nobody really being able to replace what we're doing. So HPQ is well positioned. HPQ Energy is going to be the one that's going to be working on the battery material, and also probably the one on the hydrogen carbon type of situation. Our PureVap Green is going to do the silicone, and we got the Novation there. So look at it this way. We have the Quebec government as a major investor. We have strategic investor with 6.3, management and board, in interest. I think today we closed at that price again, so we got a market cap of $103 million, which is good. Cash and cash equivalent, if we take kind of options, around 3.3 million. So we are in the right space at the right time. The rest of it is just nothing else. Auditors to be announced. It's just just before this, I was having a conference with what seems to be a promising group to do the audit. So
finding an auditor, I don't think is going to be, especially with so many other companies that are, cease traded, halt traded, having all sorts of issues. There's capacity out there now. Auditors have got capacity. You can probably, it's a buyer's market. You should be able to negotiate some pretty good prices on your audit.
Yes, but because of our Novation, because of our R&D, it's like there are some oddities to what we're doing, which makes it a bit more expensive.
Yeah.
But it's once against the regulator. They keep shooting themselves in the foot. They keep doing everything to kill innovation. They're screaming demand for innovation, and yet they keep doing everything they can to slow it down. It's the nature
federal
of the
or provincial?
Both.
Hopefully federal. We'll get the hook pretty soon.
Oh. Anyway, don't get me started. I prefer not to. So,
well, you've come this far, so it's a moat for anybody else to try and even do this. So it's amazing you come this far under those circumstances, but you're there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we've gone through. All right, perfect.
So that's basically the rest. So the deck is probably going to be up online tonight, or you probably still need to do one last proofreading of checking, and then I got to go through the the notation, but we'll have it out there.
So safe to say, instead of tonight or tomorrow, people be able to look it over
Yeah.
in detail over the long weekend.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Bernard, last words to you, man. Look, I know this story. I've been with you a long time here. It's amazing to see what's happened. Um, so there's not much more I can ask you because you covered so much. But last word to you, to the shareholders before we go into this long weekend here in Canada and long weekend next week for our friends in the United States. But
No, it's actually
it
the same. It's
it
actually the
almost
same
looks
week.
it almost looks, I don't want to say too good to be true, but man, it's unbelievable because I've been in this business for 27 years, worked with a lot of great companies, have seen a lot of great dreams fall apart and eventually failed execution. That's the nature of venture market, so that's okay. But when you see something just keeps inching and inching closer and inching closer, it starts to get really exciting.
Mhm.
And I'm not jinxing anything there. We're not taking a
Hopefully.
victory lap, but it just seems like you're right there. So last word to you, to everybody before this long weekend.
Um, oh, I think the second part of 2024 is going to be fun. Like it's to be totally honest, if it wasn't for the auditor snafu that's slowing down one thing we're doing, I think 2024 is going to be really fun. I think a few of our things are going to be working on multiple burners. We have multiple discussion left, right, and center. We now know in the battery space that we are very well situated. And fume
How do you know that?
silica.
Is the phone ringing? Because I always ask that question. Given the
Yes,
press release put out yesterday, is the phone actually
the
ringing even
yeah,
more?
the phone's actually really innovation, but it's going to come to us through because I am also the president of Novation. No, it's 2024 fume silica, second half of 2024, starting in July. Um, I feel very confident that there are a lot of great things coming online.
Uh, can't say it better than that. I'd press you for more, but I know you can't say more.
I
But
would be willing to
this
dance on
whole
the
thing,
table.
this whole presentation, you've been dropping little jewels here, and it's like I want to press you for more, but it seems like it's close enough that we don't need to. And I don't know.
Everything I've said has been press release. Everything I say has been press release. I may put the emphasis in different terms, but everything I said has been press release.
Man, enjoy your long weekend. You've earned it. Have a cold one. Don't get much more sun because you're looking like a lobster right now, as opposed to my Greek olive tan. Hopefully, you'll come to Toronto. We'll sit poolside. We'll do an interview poolside and really work on your tan together. But otherwise, this long weekend, for real, I think I speak
No,
on
it's
behalf
because
of
I'm wearing a
99.9.
tie. It's because I'm
What's
wearing
that?
a tie, so it's basically cutting the blood flow to my brain.
But I think I speak on behalf of 99.9% of shareholders when I say you guys have done an amazing job along with your partners at Pyrogenesis and Novastim. You guys have done an amazing job. And we're all right there behind you. We all have our fingers crossed and we're all hoping for the best, not just because we all want to become wealthier shareholders, but
Hey, I
we
want to become
really,
wealthy. Come on.
and you, but
I'm
it'd be
not doing
nice to
this for
just be part,
charities.
everybody be part of a really nice winning,
I
you
didn't
know.
exercise a million. I didn't even know about that tax rule, but my idea of exercising my million options at 21 cents when they were 21 cents and a half, or 21 cents and a half, fundamentally was brilliant because it sort of like reduce my tax break in coming. I actually put more, transferred more into my tax-free account just before the change of the rules. Let's be very realistic. I'm not doing this to save the planet. I'm doing this because it's going to help me. But by default, I'll save the planet. But I'm doing this for money.
And you're gonna be
I
helping
understand.
and you're gonna be helping shareholders.
Yeah, well, I'm a shareholder. I'm a big shareholder. I have I have paid taxes on stocks that are now underwater.
Yeah,
As
that's the
weird
crazy
as this
part.
can be seen, I've paid taxes on future gain I have yet made.
So the government knows something. They must know something. They know those.
No, they just know how to tax. That's all. They don't know how to deliver anything else. They just know how to tax. That's the only thing they're semi-efficient at doing.
I'm just glad, last word from me, that we both still have a job at the end of the day. The AGM went pretty smooth. The board's been reelected. That means you have your job. That means for now I have a job, and that's the best part of the day. But this presentation was awesome, my man. I think everyone's gonna be happy watching this, or maybe listen to it on their, on their earbuds while they're all enjoying a good weekend. So to our Canadian friends, wish you guys all a really great long weekend. And it sounds like we got something to look forward to in July. I mean, you keep talking about July, August. So, I can't wait. And I'm not going on vacation in July. So hopefully, if and when something happens,
Oh, don't break the
ready.
fun. I have to annoy you during vacation.
Yeah. Well, I'll come up from the pool.
Okay.
That's what I'll do. I'll come up from the pool. But thank you, my friend. Happy long weekend.
right.
Happy long weekend, everybody. Have a great day. See you next time.
Hey Small Cap fam, I hope you loved this interview because more than a dozen people were involved in its production for the sole purpose of making you happy. If so, can you take a moment to support both our awesome guest company and AGORACOM? Your engagement means the world to us. First, if you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up by tapping that like button. It's a small gesture that helps this interview reach even more potential investors to discover today's guest. Second, we would love to hear your feedback on this interview, so please leave a comment below. Be sure to keep it clean, but feel free to poke fun at George. If you loved what you heard on today's video and want to dig into our guest company right away, take a look at the links in the description below. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to never miss another great AGORACOM small cap video. Thank you so much. We couldn't do any of this without you. Make sure to come back soon.